Right. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see all your amazing faces. And welcome to Unity of Stockton. It's good to have everyone here present in this moment, as always, after this incredible heat. And we also welcome anyone who's watching us live on YouTube or on Zoom. Thank you for tuning in. Now, our amazing spiritual team, the amazing Reverend Dr. Bob Brach. Yeah, right. Our musician, William Menenfield. And it is I, yours truly, your technician. And Willie Smith, our usher. Right. Now, shall we stand for a sing along?
I'm trading my sorrows, I'm trading my shame, I'm laying them down for the joy of the Lord. I'm trading my sickness, I'm trading my pain, I'm laying them down for the joy of the Lord. We say yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, amen. I am pressed but not crushed, persecuted, not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed. I am blessed beyond the curse, for the promise will endure, and the joy gonna be my strength. For the sorrow may last for a night, the joy comes in the morning. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm trading my sorrows, I'm trading my shame, I'm laying them down for the joy of the Lord. I'm trading my sickness, I'm trading my pain, I'm laying them down for the joy of the Lord. I'm laying them down for the joy of the Lord. I'm laying them down for the joy of the Lord.
Well, let's come together in prayer. And this morning, let's hold a special thought for our Reverend Mary Ann, who's dealing with the loss of her mom, who just transitioned just recently. So I invite you to just close your eyes and see Reverend Mary Ann in your mind's eye, being enveloped in a blue-white bubble of healing spiritual energy. Encourage her on and guiding her in dealing with this period of loss and change, and see her mom moving on to their next adventure in her spiritual experience, whatever it may be. And we're grateful for this wonderful spiritual community here in Stockton, California. We're grateful for everyone who had a hand in bringing this beautiful place into fruition and keeping it running. And we send our prayers and thoughts out into the world, seeing bless this unity message as it goes out into the world, lifting people, their hearts, their minds. And all God's children said together, thank you, God. Together, thank you, God. Amen.
And let us continue to hold that spiritual place, that place of love and of compassion and of gratitude. Holding continuing throughout the service to hold Reverend Marianne and her mother in our hearts, and also holding ourselves in our hearts and this community, this spiritual place. Let us say together our June sacred prayers. Inner peace. I am peace at the core of my being. Guidance. I listen to my inner wisdom, and I am guided to live my purpose. Healing. Healing energy flows throughout my being, renewing my body and mind. Prosperity. God is my source. I freely give and freely I receive. World peace. My thoughts, words, and actions create a safe place for peace and love. Amen. And keeping in that spirit, let us come together and greet each other. Wonderful greetings, wonderful energy. I'm still buzzing. So, as per usual, we have our daily words in the back for $1 to $2 love offerings. And just a reminder that the vision and mission discussion will be postponed while our Reverend Marianne deals with the transition of her mother. So, not sure when it will be. Will it be next week or the following?
Not sure. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, to be announced. So
Next
we'll.
week is Father's Day, so it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, next week is Father's Day, so yeah, we will keep you updated on when the next discussion will be. And today, Susan will be our prayer chaplain today. So if you have something that needs to be prayed over, go see Susan today for your prayer needs. And let us go ahead and drop into our heart space as we contemplate today's daily word. Today, June 9th, prosperity. I focus on the goodness of God and know prosperity. Sometimes I may worry, wondering if I will have enough of what I need. If thoughts of lack or limitation arise, I lift my thoughts from the things of the world to the truth of God. I focus my mind on the richness of divine life within me. I feel calm and assured as I remember I live in an abundant universe and am heir to everything God is. Even when my worldly fortunes shift, I am abundant in spirit. As I align my thinking with divine mind in prayer, I become receptive to divine ideas that prosper me. I claim prosperity and feel empowered as I do. My prosperity stems from my oneness with God. I count my blessings, feel grateful, and trust with understanding faith I have enough. They feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your delights. Psalm 36:8. And at this time, center yourselves and prepare for meditation.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. summer and winter and springtime and harvest. Sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hands had provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for error and peace that endureth, thine only presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow, blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand had provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand had provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Yes, great is thy faithfulness, O God. And we use this period of meditative reflection to make that deeper connection with you, that spark of divinity that's within each and every one of us. So I invite you to sit comfortably on your chair, whether you're here in our sanctuary or sitting in front of your computer at home. And if it serves you, you can close your eyes or let your gaze be softly forward, using soft eyes, focusing on nothing but seeing everything. Let's bring our awareness to our body temple. Feel the pressure of our feet on the floor, the pressure of our body against the chair. Knowing that chair and that floor supports us fully, just like spirit supports us fully as we move about through the world. And I invite you to bring your attention to your breath. Follow that next breath down into our lungs. And any cares or concerns or worries from that week behind us, the week ahead of us, see them mixed with that air in our lungs. And as we exhale, send those worries, cares, and concerns up through the ceiling, up to that big blue sky here in Stockton, California, or wherever you are in the world. Floating up there like helium-filled balloons, just releasing them to the atmosphere. And on our next in-breath, just follow our attention down and let it stay at our heart center. Our heart, that wonderful physical organ that sends blood to every cell of our being. And that blood removes the waste products, brings us back to our lungs, and releases those out into the atmosphere, those products that no longer serve our greatest good, but are released out into the atmosphere to be reused by other life processes, like these beautiful trees we have around us outside. And bringing our attention back to our heart center. And if there's any part of our body temple that needs that healing hand of spirit, I invite you to see love-filled, spirit-filled blood flowing from our heart center to that part of our body temple that needs that healing hand of spirit. Seeing that part of our body temple enveloped in a blue-white light bubble of healing energy, spiritual energy, bringing about healing at the right and perfect time and in the right and perfect way. And if there's any person, place, thing, or event that needs that healing hand of spirit in our lives, I invite you to see it very clearly in your mind's eye. And see that person, that place, that thing, that event wrapped in a blue-white light bubble of healing, spiritual energy, bringing about the right and perfect solutions at the right and perfect time and in the right and perfect way. Now bringing our attention back to our heart center. And Jesus of Nazareth, when asked by his disciples, saying, "Lord, teach us how to pray," he told them to go within to the closet of their being, their heart center, to shut the door to the outside world and listen in silence for the Father to speak in a small, still voice. Or perhaps images flitting across our mind, or thoughts flitting through our mind. So we bring our attention to our heart center. We mentally shut the door to the outside world, and we listen for about 2 minutes or so in a brief period of silence, listening for that small, still voice, those images flashing across our mind, our thoughts flitting through our minds, as we gently rest in the silence for about 2 minutes or so. And now we gently bring our awareness back to our physical body. perhaps during that period of silence, we heard something like a small, still voice speaking to us, or images flashing across the screen of our mind, or thoughts flitting through our mind, or perhaps not, but we have made ourselves open and available to Spirit. Perhaps later today on the drive home, a billboard will catch our attention with a message from Spirit, or an email from a friend, or a movie we're watching, a book we're reading, a phone call from a friend. Will reveal what is Spirit calling for us to do on this beautiful Sunday here in Stockton, California. So now we gently open our eyes, take a nice gentle breath of air in, and we're ready for our Sunday lesson. Wow. Well, that's good to be here. I appreciate it. And Margie and I were on vacation the last 10 days or so. We got a text from Mary Ann saying that her mom had passed and asked if one of us could fill in this Sunday. And Margie, as we speak right now, is speaking in Unity Center in Vacaville. So you guys got me. And the title of my talk is Here Comes Summer, Dealing with Change. Wow, here comes summer, dealing with change. And we're going to talk a little bit about those things that are expected and unexpected to show up in our life and how to deal with them. And we're looking at a little Bible story from a Hebrew Bible about two gals and how to make some big changes in their life. And some words of wisdom from our co-founder, Charles Fillmore. Wow, time flies. And about 2 weeks ago, we had Memorial Day. And right after Memorial Day, Margie and I took off for Boston and then on to New York. And I was reflecting upon Memorial Day. You know, that period changed too. It started off back in 1865. A group of freed slaves decided that after the hostilities ended in Civil War in South Carolina, at this Charleston, South Carolina, these freed slaves decided that they were going to exhume the bodies from the Union soldiers that were buried at this Confederate prison of war camp. So it took them like 10 days. They dug up all the bodies, put them in individual graves, put a fence around it, and called it the Union Cemetery. And they decided they're going to have a big celebration. So for like 3 days, they had barbecues, they had sermons, they had singing, they had dancing. Well, this celebration continued on, and over the years it was expanded to just not the Civil War dead, but the dead from all military campaigns. And then it expanded again to men and women who are actively serving still, or have served. And then it expanded again to people who had served in our lives. You know, I remember growing up, my mom and dad on Memorial Day, they'd pack us in the car and we'd go out to visit the graves at my grandmother and grandfather and my great-grandmother, my uncles. And I remember Margie wanted to go back to see where I grew up in Chicago. I said, okay. And I took her out to the cemetery. And you know, as I remember it, there's this big hill that I'd run up as a little guy, and there's this super big statue of the Virgin Mary standing up there. So we're driving over there, and we look, and there's the statue of Mary, and there's this little slope going up there. Sure changed a lot from all those years, so wow. You know, and Memorial Day is kind of remembers, you know, they have the Indianapolis 500, speeds are increasing, but they want to remember stuff. So there is a 36-inch strip of the original brick at the starting line and finish line for the Indianapolis 500 from 1911 till present day. So people can remember what's going on and where they were. And a few days from now, we're going to have the summer solstice, June 20th. It's when the days are getting longer and then it gets shorter and shorter, our summer solstice. You know, it's going to be the longest day of the year on June 20th. And I remember as a kid growing up in Chicago about the summer. Summer seemed to last forever, man. Get to be going to school First day of summer vacation, my mom would take us to Sears. I'd get a brand new pair of Sears Jeepers shoes. And by the end of the summer, those bottoms were worn smooth from running around the Key School schoolyard playing all the sports we used to do. Wow, elastic time. Margie and I spent these last 10 days or so in Boston and in New York City. And like this morning, I got up and it was like, where was I? I mean, it seemed like it was long ago, but then it wasn't. And boy, we packed in as much as we could. And in New York City, we've seen 4 Broadway shows, 1 dinner theater, 4 museums, got to ride the subway, and we were traveling mostly during the middle of the day. And I was thinking, this is pretty neat, just find a seat. Well, we took the subway on rush hour. Oh my God. The packed like sardines. And we had go to one stop, but next thing we're getting pushing farther away. And I said, how are we going to get out of here? So we experienced, it was hot, it was rainy, and people got on the subways and packed. So we experienced the full New York subway experience. Never again. During rush hour. And the other thing we did was in Boston, we got to visit the USS Constitution. Now, as a Coast Guard officer, I was stationed in Boston for about 5.5 years. Well, actually, a year about of that was spent out in the North Atlantic on a ship. But the other 4 I spent on the district office there. And I remember as we went on the Constitution, looking across the harbor where the Coast Guard base used to be. And remember in my good Coast Guard times, I got to visit the Constitution once before. And the Constitution is the oldest U.S. Navy ship in service. They have an active duty commander as a commanding officer. They have an executive officer. They have an operations officer. They have these sailors that are there, and they're dressed in the uniforms of the 1800s, and they explain how they do this. And I remember I was looking at the 24-pound cannon and thinking, wow, that's something. How do they load that? And I remember years ago when I was in this graduate program at the University of Cal State Hayward, CSU8, Cal State University Hayward, and they've changed their name already. But it was a class we're having in Berkeley, UC campus. And I was wearing my little Coast Guard shirt. And the professor says, Mr. Brach, do you know the story of the British gun sight? And I said, no, sir, but I think I'm going to learn. So he says, well, the British Navy, these other navies, the French and the Spanish, had developed this gun sight where, like on the Constitution, they could put it on the cannon and the warrant gunner could make the decision when to fire this cannon. The British Navy said, nope, we ain't going to do that. You see, the captain had the authority. He's standing way back on the quarterdeck of the ship. It's rocking and rolling. They're moving forward. He's giving commands to adjust the sails. And he had the time when he said, shoot, so the guy could touch hold of the cannon. But it had to go from his voice to the guy standing over the hatches to yell down and say, shoot, to the guy touching the hole. And then the cannon's got a boom, and it either goes way up over the ship or down in the water. Taking that gun sight took the authority from the ship's captain and gave it to this junior officer down below. Well, after their British got their clocks cleaned a couple times, they decided, maybe the gun sight's not a bad idea. Captain, you're just going to have to deal with that. I think sometimes in our lives, we come into these situations about dealing with change. Well, that's the way we've always done it. I remember when I was stationed in Boston, I went down to the finance people because I had this, I was working with this reserve program up there, and I had these 3 pots of money, and I think they were taking it from the wrong pot. So I went down and asked these gals nicely, the comptroller manual says you're supposed to do this, this, and this. I says, well, that's the way we've always done that, Lieutenant Brach. I walked up 1 flight of stairs from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor. I walked in the office, and my captain says, Brach, get in here. He says, what did you do down in finance? He says, don't ever ask a civil servant why they're doing something. I said, but Captain, they're doing it wrong. So I showed him, and he eventually got the captain and in charge of finance and captain of reserve. They talked, and I was absolved of that. But, that's the way they always did it. They've been doing it that way for years, but they were doing it wrong. So when change comes about, when we're approaching people about doing something different, wow, things can butt heads. So I think it's good to reflect on, where we've been, where we are now, and particularly, where are we going? I remember reading about habits. And if you want to make a change in a habit, see, habits you don't just change, you have to put a new habit in its place. It takes about 21 days. And the best time to start it is on vacation. Because on vacation, we do things differently. And I was just reflecting on that as we went and did that. So, do we need to adjust the temperature? Getting hot in here. Oh, my goodness. We missed your 100-some degree days last week. We don't need to repeat them. So, yeah, so I was reflecting on that, and when the days that we were in Boston and New York, I was doing things differently. And they say, if you want to start a habit, do it while you're on vacation, because you're normally doing things differently. Then all you have to do is continue on for another 21 days, and you got that new habit. Maybe it's working out or doing whatever. So, change. Change is something we experience all the time. Our physical bodies here are changing. We're going to walk out that door a little differently than when we walked in. I'd heard in my biology classes that every 7 years we have a new body. I was thinking of that when I looked in the mirror the other day, and I saw my dad looking back at me. Where was I? Why couldn't I stay like I'm 35? And now I'm in the 70s. So, but not all the cells change. The nerve ones stay with us forever, but the blood cells change. So, physically, when we walk out that door, we are changed people when we walk out that door. And I teach Bible for the Unity Urban Ministerial School. It's one of the 3 ways to become a Unity minister. There's one at the Unity Institute. There's a program when you're in a church that you can go through, or you can go through this urban school out of Detroit, Michigan. And it's online. And I have students all over the world. I have some students in Africa. I have one in Europe. So, because they do it online, you can do it. And being involved in the Bible classes, I love Bible. And the one story that really resonates with me about change is a story from the book of Ruth in the Hebrew Bible. When I was in ministerial school, we had to put on a skit or a play, and we chose the book of Ruth to do that. And I'm not sure if I had a part in that, but I remember, I can still picture my one classmate bundled up like she was Ruth. And the story of Ruth is about 2 gals, Naomi and Ruth. Naomi was an Israelite, and she had moved down to Moab, which is a country next to Israel where they are. And her husband and her 2 sons had married Moabite women. And as life would happen, her husband passed, her sons passed. Naomi says to her 2 daughter-in-laws, I'm kind of old and I can't really take care of you, and I'm going to go back home to Jerusalem and Israel. And she said, you're free to go on your own way. Well, one daughter-in-law says, okay. But Ruth says, no, I'm going with you. Where you will go, I will go. Your gods will be my gods. Wow. And Naomi says, well, okay. So they traveled for many days. Back then, there were no superhighways. There were mostly traveling on foot. And I'm thinking about, traveling from Moab up to Jerusalem. 2 women, I don't know if they traveled alone, but that was an arduous journey. And they finally got to where her hometown was. And Ruth says, she looks around, she noticed, oh my God, this is the barley harvest. She says, I'm going to go out and harvest some barley so we can make cakes and eat and survive. See, back then, we didn't have the social programs like we have today. And widows and orphans, man, they were at the low end of the food chain. But the Israelites, in their practices, on the fields, they would not glean all the way in the corners. They'd leave those for the poor people to come in and pick. So Ruth showed up at this one field, and she asked the foreman if she could gather stuff, and they said sure. And it turned out the field was owned by a relative of Naomi called Boaz. And I think Ruth was a pretty good-looking gal, because Boaz shows up one day and says, "Who's that?" And the foreman says, "That's with your relative Naomi. She's coming back from Moab." He says, "Well, whatever she needs, let her have it. In fact, leave a little extra so she can take it home." So they did. And one evening, Naomi says to Ruth, "Put on your fine duds. You're going down to the threshing floor where Boaz is be sleeping, and I want you to stay at his feet." So she went down to the threshing floor. Apparently, when they're threshing the wheat, they want to make sure nobody's took it. So she sleeps, and Boaz wakes up and says, "What are you doing here?" She says, "Well, I've come to see you, and I've come to ask you, you're a distant relative of Naomi, and can you please take care of her?" So Boaz says, "Sure, I can do that." Well, they became fast friends, and they started courting, I guess, and they ended up getting married, which made Naomi really happy. And it's kind of interesting, Boaz and Ruth was the great-great-grandmother of the King David. King David's lineage goes down to Jesus of Nazareth. So it's kind of interesting when we look at these change. Here Ruth had to give up where she lived, and she had to move to a strange country. And she did it. And, she was able to look for, when she showed up there, she had to look for the good, which means she saw the barley harvest. And sometimes in our life, we don't see the good. Here she is in a strange town, a strange area, and she notices the barley harvest. And she also knows, hey, I can get in there, I can do something by going out on my own and getting these barley things and make food for my mother-in-law. So dealing with change, how do we deal with change? When I was in ministerial school, every year we had what was called license and ordination interviews. They're oral interviews. They used to call it love and order. Yeah, that's an oral interview. Because these ministers are coming on their own hook, they're interviewing you, and they're going to decide, are you fit enough to go on to be a unity minister? And they had two teams. If they both said, okay, you went on. If one said yes and the other said no, you had a third interview. And you sitting at home with your phone waiting, please don't call, please don't call, please don't call. And I remember sitting at this one interview, and this one minister, I had four gals, I can still picture it in my mind's eye. She says, Bob, what do you do if one of the principles in unity are not working in your life? I kind of gave her the deer in the headlights look. What's she talking? She says, I'll give you a hint. DNA. What does my chromosomes have to do with unity principles? DNA, dinucleic acid? What? She says, no, Bob. D and A. Denials and affirmations. Oh, I know denials and affirmation. And I was able to spill that out. But, so one of the things that we can have in our unity toolkit, if things aren't going right, denials and affirmations. Denials are not denying the existence of something. You're denying the power of that event over your life. And denials are like gently brushing away the cobwebs. Affirmations are strong, powerful statements of truth, like what Glenn read from our daily word today. If you want to know what a powerful affirmation is, open a daily word. And I invite you to get the daily word. Read it every day. I have that, and I also have Science of Mind that I read. But our daily word is 100 years old. As of, I think it started in April of 1924. So 100 years of that. There's people that devotional sits in a bunch of churches who have no idea that it came from Unity. But, so anyway, so denials and affirmations is one of our things. The second thing is looking for the good. Looking for the good. Some years ago, I used to read for about almost 14 years, read the unpublished talks of our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, on the Unity Online Radio. And one of the talks that I had read was from 1930, August 3rd, 1930, in the midst of the Depression. And Charles Fillmore had a story about a Scotswoman and the devil. Not that Unity affirms a physical devil, but this is a story that Charles told. Once there was a Scotch woman who was loyal to good and believed that good is everywhere, and she always had a word of praise for everyone she spoke of. One of her friends one day said, "I believe you speak a good word for the devil." She said, "Well, is he not busy? His work show he's a very busy person." That was a good word, even for the devil, and I think that if we would speak good for what seems frequently to be evil, it would transform people, and they would begin to see that there's good in there somewhere. So, wow. So, reaffirming it's not a physical devil, but people that can see good. When I was in this Brethren church in Danville, California, there was this guy, Rick, who was in our men's group. And Rick was one of these guys that could see good in everything. Well, I'm on active duty in the military. And sometimes our military humor is usually at somebody else's expense. So I'm sharing these stories with Rick, and Rick's going, "Bob, that doesn't seem very nice." So it made me to see what I thought was humorous really wasn't humorous, is at somebody else's expense. So there are people in our lives that can see the good in everything. And the last part is gratitude. Go gratitude. In the story of Ruth and Boaz, she reminded Boaz saying, "You are very kind to a foreigner. You helped my relative Naomi." And Boaz says, "May God bless you and reward your kindness." So Ruth was grateful to Boaz for letting her glean in the fields and also reaching out and taking care of his relative Naomi. Wow, go gratitude. Two practices that Marge and I do every night in bed. We tell each other 5 things that we did right. A lot of times we lay in bed and say, if I only did this, if I only did that. Say 5 things to each other. Just 5, sometimes more, but sometimes we keep it short. And gratitude lists. If we're traveling somewhere and we need to kill time in the car, we start with the alphabet. A, B, C, D, and we say something that we're grateful for to begin with A. Then we begin with B and C, go all the way through. So being grateful makes a big difference in our life, even when things kind of go sideways. A couple of weeks ago, Margie got rear-ended in our Prius, and I'm thinking, where is the good in that? Our USAA insurance fixed our car, was all ready to go, and now Margie had some medical stuff she's getting taken care of, but it's all working out the way it's supposed to. And I know that there is a prosperity demonstration, like our word for today, in this somewhere. The Apostle Paul, when he wrote to the Christians in Thessalonica, I'm having trouble speaking this morning, Thessalonica. He told them to be joyful always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you. Be joyful always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances. Wow. So, kind of wrapping us all up together, let's kind of think about the family and friends and brother who have touched us in our lives, like starting off in that Memorial Day theme, and particularly as the new summer solstice is coming in, this change, look back at our family and friends. See how grateful. Maybe think of that one person who was really pivotal in what's your life. And if you're dealing with change, and who isn't, perhaps the words of Paul Hasselbeck, a former instructor of mine at the SEE at Village, and Charles Fillmore can help. Paul Hasselbeck said this: It's not so much the unanswered questions that keep us in the dark. It's the unquestioned answers that keep us stuck in conventional thinking. And Charles Fillmore's favorite Bible verse was, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So, dear ones, as we move forward through the rest of our week, be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Namaste.
Melt the clouds of grief and sadness. Drive the dark cloud away. Joyful, adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee. Hail thee, the sun above. Melt the clouds of grief and sadness. Drive the dark of doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness. Fill us with the light of day. Mortals join the mighty chorus, which the morning star began. God's own love is reigning o'er us. Join the people hand in hand, ever singing, march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music leads us onward in the triumph song of life. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, hail thee as the sun above.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Bob Brach, for your amazing message. Thank you, William, for your amazing talents. Thank you for sharing that with us. And at this time, let us go into our offering time. Take what you would give in your hands and blessing it with that energy of love, of abundance, of expansion, of prosperity. We say together our prayer. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.